Hey YouTube, what's up? I know I said I would never do a tool review video, but I'm gonna do a tool review video. And it's not that I'm just doing one to do it. Um, Last year I saw that Jorgensen had come out with hand planes and a miter box saw to complement the chisels and hand saw they had out with the year prior. And I was legitimately curious as to how they would work because they looked really nice. And so I got these tools for Christmas, and I used them to make two projects. One is a 6 foot tall DVD case, which is not in my shop. It's out in another room. I'm getting ready for finishing. Another is this picture frame right here. Now, the only Jorgensen tool I actually used for this was the miter saw. Everything else I used my Stanley tools for. But anyway, I thought I would give them a go. I even did a mini review on TikTok and posted in a series of videos there, which completely tanked, but whatever. And I decided to use these and try to use them exclusively for one project, and I ended up for two. And when I was going it, I was thinking, well, maybe I should just try all non-Stanley tools. And I got this Lufkin tape measure and this Jorgensen tri-square. But then I realized I was kind of dumb because what am I going to do? Rebuy my entire, inventory of tools? That would be a waste of money and space. But I did buy these, so I'm going to include them in the review. So, the Lufkin Control Series 16 foot, the Jorgensen Tri-Square. Tape measures and squares are those types of things where they either work or they don't. There's no middle ground, there's no nuance, there's nothing to them. It's like they work or they don't. And these work. Some of the features I can argue with, like this little divot here, which you're supposed to use your finger to stop the tape with. There was never any need for that because you always just do it that way. You don't need to have it all the way back here. So it's kind of a useless feature, but as you can see, it's got numbers. You can see them. It's got its markings. It's a tape measure. It works. Once again, square, it either works or doesn't. However, I'm going to contradict myself in saying I don't really like this 45-degree bevel. I think it's more of a gimmick than anything because it's so small that it can rock back and forth, and it creates an area where you can actually push on it and get it out of the square. But it's big, it's heavy. I mean, it looks cool, and once you learn how to hold it, it'll mark a square line. So, yeah. Although I will say that I prefer my Stanley tri-square. So, now that they're out of the way, let's go to the Jorgensens. Now, I've been using Jorgensen clamps and vices, both avocationally and vocationally, for decades. And so I really was curious about their tools. So I'm just going to go in descending order. These chisels here, I have 3 of them. I have the 1/4 inch, the 3/4, and the 2 inch. They don't make a 3/8, which I wish they did, because 1/4, 3/8, 3/4, 1.5 inches, 2 inches. Those are what you really need in a complete chisel set. I mean, yeah, you can eventually get others, but those are your mainstay. And there wasn't a 3/8, and I don't think there was an 1.5 inch either. But these are really good. I quite enjoyed these. The steel is really nice. They kept their edge. They're nice and thick, good for chopping. I wouldn't, maybe not so much for dovetailing, but I didn't use them for dovetail. The handles are comfortable. They got the strike cap, which is good. Yeah, I really, really like these chisels. And I would recommend them for, even professional on the job use. They come sharpened at a 28-degree angle, which is kind of in between a paring angle of 25 degrees and a chopping angle of 30 degrees. Since I use my chisels mostly for chopping, I just rehone them to 30 degrees. Because my honing jigs don't come set up for 28 degrees. But I didn't want to have to regrind them all on the grinder to 25 degrees. But you do whatever you feel is best for you and your work. But yeah, I really like these. These get my highest recommendations. Next up is the Jorgensen number 4. And this is really nice. The handles are wood. I think they're really comfortable. I can grip them really easily. It has an 8-inch thick blade and a Lie-Nielsen style chip breaker. And it's really set up like a Lie-Nielsen plane. The way the frog mates to the bed is at a slope instead of straight across like a Stanley. It's at a slope like the Lie-Nielsen. Which means when you bring the frog forward, the blade also comes down. That's a bit annoying, but it's not anything super major. I mean, it's an annoyance, but it's a very minor annoyance. It has a knurled knurled screw for tightening and loosening the lever cap. I personally like the lever that the Stanleys have and Lie-Nielsen and stuff like that. I'm not a fan of these. With the ones that have the lever, I can just easily pop it up. It's just faster to take the blade on and off. But once again, that's a personal preference. Some people like this type of chip breaker with the screw better. And so it's really just a matter of preference. And you can see here the Lie-Nielsen style chip breaker. It's a fully machined frog. So overall, it's a very nice plane. I will say it's not as nice as my Stanley Baileys. And it should be nicer because it has all the things that the plane gurus say a premium plane should have. But when I did a head-to-head comparison, my Stanley Bailey number 3, which is smaller, took in outperformed it. But that said, it's still a really good tool. I was able to use it with absolutely no problems. It's just the screw, the angled bed for the frog, and the slightly less performance, slightly poor performance, has it in second place. Now the miter saw it's nice. I will say it's very stiff, and the bed right here is very small. So you're not going to be able to do wide work on it. And the stiffness can be a bit of an annoyance. See, I can't even with the locking mechanism disengaged, I can't move it. This, which is to hold the work, it works fine as long as you don't bring this over to 45 degrees. When this is over here at 45 degrees, the saw blade actually comes over here when it's up, which makes it impossible to use. You can switch positions from one side to the next. So for the stiffness, for kind of like the impracticality of this when the blade's over at 45 degrees on this side, I had to put it right down to the mid-level. But I mean, it makes a nice cut. I was able to cut the picture frame out, no problem. So, I mean, performance is the ultimate. All right, here is a cornering tool, and it sits on the corners. I have a straight blade in for making 45s. If you open this up right here, you can buy extra blades for it, for corners, notches, and stuff like that. It's nice. It's got a nice adjustment, but you can't hog off a lot on it. I had to take a very light cut, especially on end grain, advance the blade a little bit, take another cut, advance the blade. So it's very slow. I would say it's slower than just using a block plane. But it does work. It does work, and getting other blades for it will improve its functionality. But for just chamfering, meh. Alright, here's the Jorgensen handsaw, and now we're starting to get into like tools. It cut, but it has a very short length, as you can see. So you have to use more strokes to cut as if the blade was longer. Also, it bound pretty easily in the cut, so it would flex a lot and get pinched. It's okay. It's okay, but it was not a joy to use, and I felt like I was trying to work around the tool than having the tool work for me. And that brings me to the block plane. Once again, it looks really nice, and it has all the things that the plane gurus say a premium plane should have. It has a fully machined bed, a 1/8 thick cutting iron, ductile iron body. This should be a winner. But it didn't perform like a winner. The project I used it on was white pine, and if you know your woods, white pine is the softest wood I would ever make anything out of. Um, Anything softer than white pine, it's junk. You're basically talking like wooden model material. Um, so white pine is the softest furniture wood you'd ever want to go. And it really did struggle with that. I wasn't able to get nice shavings off end grain. It did all right on long grain. I have the mount set all the way back, but yet for end grain work, it's still open too wide for a nice closed mouth. It doesn't have a lateral adjuster, which I don't like. Some people don't mind. There are premium planes that don't have them, but so it's not a deal breaker. But I don't personally like it. It has the screw here, the knob that you loosen to take the blade out, and you really gotta loosen this up, like to a lot to be able to take it off. But here's the blade. I did regrind this to 25 degrees. It does not keep an edge very well, but it does have a fully machined bed. So this block plane has all the components to be a really, really, really nice block plane. But this is a case where it's less than the sum of its parts. And this was the one that I really struggled with the most. And this would be the one that I would find the hardest to recommend. Like, if you use it, like if I would have used this on, say, Brazilian cherry or oak or hickory, and it would have bogged down, hey, those are really hard woods. I get it. And I would have really judged it on a curve. But when it struggles in white pine, which is, like I said, the softest you would ever want for furniture, I can't. I mean, my Stanley here, which I've had for decades, which none of the plane gurus like, but I absolutely loved it, and this ran circles around it. Plus, it's more comfortable to use. But my hands are a little bit more on the smaller size, lengthwise. So yeah. So, in conclusion, the chisels are really good. I would completely recommend them for professional use. The hand plane is also really good. With a little tuning, maybe a new chip breaker. I'm not chip breaker, but lever cap. It would be an excellent tool, but that's just personal preference when it comes to stuff like that. But yeah, it is still really nice. The miter box was okay. It did its job, but there was no joy in it. The cornering tool for straight chamfering is kind of useless. You get the other blades for it, for making rounds and hollows, then you're talking. But just for straight chamfering, a block plane is better. The handsaw, it did its job, but it felt like I had to coax it into doing its job. And then the block plane, which is, after a while it did perform better, but I think that's just because I get used to its shortcomings and was making allowances and compensating for those. But there are much better block planes on the market. And there is one final tool that I did not include that I used. This is the Great Neck hand drill, the Great Neck Saw Company hand drill. And I remember when Great Neck, they were always a discount tool manufacturer, but at least their tools used to be functional. This is just straight garbage. Okay? It, like, this handle here spins. It's tough to